According to the native Hawaiian religion, in their creation story, humans don't show up until 1,000 generations after the creation of the universe. Their religion is polytheistic and animistic, and in the story, the earth, sky, and stars were made from a calabash from the god of creation, Cain. The sky was domained by Rangi, and the earth was domained by goddess Papa. Cain gave Kanaloa the sea to domain, and Cain said they need a chief to rule the earth, and so they filled it with what they needed, living things and animals. Ku was given domain of the forest, Lono was given domain of food, and the gods found red earth to make humans. They proclaimed the first human, the first son of Rangi and Papa. Wakea and the first human's wife was named Lihuala, and from this came the rest of the population of native Hawaii. Let us enlighten you on the history of the native people. Their economy was based off of land and sea products before the Europeans came. Each of the 8 inhabited islands was separated into districts, also known as okana, subdivided into awapua, which shaped pieces of island. And each awapua was fashioned into ili, and an ili was the ohana, the essential economic unit in Hawaiian society. Because there was no money, there was no economic exploitation before the Europeans. The way of caring for the land was considered malama aina, an exchange between ohanas made up economic life, and awapua. They were economically independent. They had access to all that they needed to survive, all the food and land that they needed. And the kinship at the economic base of Hawaiian society was a complex network of ali'i, also known as chiefs, and competing in rank with mana, also known as spiritual power, and were able to create prosperity. The highest ranking of these chiefs were advised by a council of chiefs and a kahuna, which were people relating to priests. However, this all changed when the haole, or white people, came. To this day, we can still see the effects of the appropriation of the native Hawaiians, of their culture. Appropriation is used to sell commercialized plastic leis, hula hula girls, coconut ashtrays, and the commercialized and well-known aloha used to sell things as a catchphrase, anything from plumbing to securities to air conditioning. But aloha is actually a philosophy that goes much more deeper than how it's seen today. In Hawaii, natives are outnumbered 30-1, and because of tourism, the land that the natives used to reside on that fed others are being turned into hotels, and the seas with fish have been littered with jet skis, windsurfers, and sailboats. The natives have been taken away the ability to have power for themselves, and the dense population leads to poor locals trying to steal from tourists, housing shortage owing, environmental crises, and so on. The European explorers set foot in Hawaii in 1778, and with them brought Christianity, capitalism, and individualism. History of Hawaii. The U.S. illegally occupied Hawaii in 1898 when it was still a kingdom. There's way more history before Captain Cook so-called discovered Hawaii, and also afterwards. The native Hawaiians are one people. Before they were brought under one flag by King Kamehameha, each island had its own rulers. And some people might call it a conquest, but they say themselves that they consider themselves not a conquered people. They're still fighting today. They're still fighting the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdom that happened by the haole. These haole were descendants of missionaries, mostly white plantation owners, looking for land. And on January 7, 1893, U.S. Marines surrounded the palace of Hawaii with Queen Liliuokalani and illegally overthrew her. This was facilitated by Sanford B. Dole, who made Hawaii a provisional government, so to say. They fought for 5 years to reinstate Queen Liliuokalani's government, and the U.S. aided in their overthrow, and they occupied Hawaii. In 1842, Hawaii was internationally recognized as a country, and the U.S. benefited from overtaking Hawaii for their own economic benefits, such as from sugar and pineapple. And also another excuse was that the missionaries said they wanted to save them with Christianity, but in reality they wanted to take over. In the 19th century, natives were intentionally killed, and in 6 decades, 90% of the people were killed off by disease. The Kapuna elders adopted a constitutional monarchy, thinking it was best for a future for Hawaii. After the legal overthrow, Hawaiian people used diplomatic channels to reinstate who they once were. The provisional government tried twice to annex Hawaii to the U.S., but this was not successful because of a petition signed by over 90% of the Hawaiian population, stating that they did not want to be a part of the U.S. Their, quote, under U.S. law, the so-called annexation of Hawaii has no legal standing. The excuse of the U.S. at the time, that was an empire, was that they were trying to, quote, protect themselves from Asia. In 1898, the U.S. began the Spanish-American War over who controlled the Philippines, but they used Hawaii as a military outpost and made army camps on their way to murder Filipinos, which is now known as genocide. Come to Hawaii, where it is home to the largest military command on Earth, and where the natives were forced out, Americans coming in and taking everything, where today 1.2 to 1.3 million people leave Hawaiians at a minority, and where without the annexation, the U.S. couldn't have done murder in the Philippines because every war since the Spanish-American War took roots from the so-called annexation of Hawaii, and this annexation is known by corporate media terms of, quote, Pacific Pivot and so-called Trans-Pacific Partnership, whitewashing Hawaiian struggles into non-existence. The percent of Hawaii controlled by U.S. military bases in Oahu is at least 25%, but this only accounts for the land, not the sea and air. In Haleakala, the U.S. Air Force occupies the sacred Polynesian mountain being controlled by the U.S. military. Makua Valley has over 40 endangered species, yet the military is playing war games on it, committing ecocide, and the base where telescopes are in Puhakuloa is the largest live fire training outside the continent of the U.S. The islands have been in the past, especially near mainlands, used as bombing targets. To this day, every 2 years, the U.S. invites 22 other countries to practice bombing targets around the islands of Hawaii. This still happens, and it may do things such as kill dolphins and other biodiversity in the ocean. Right now, as we speak, the native people struggle to survive, and it is extremely expensive to live in Hawaii because of what the U.S. has done to Hawaii and its economy. Obama says that he wants the indigenous people of Hawaii to be recognized as a part of the U.S. Come to Hawaii, where there's environmental destruction, where the most powerful empire in history, the U.S., is almost single-handedly destroying the planet, especially Hawaii, via corporations through their GMO companies and their military-industrial complex, where thousands of Hawaiians are homeless, and the places they live in look like refugee camps, and they're almost all native Hawaiians, where the GMO industry takes over huge parts of Hawaii, using land and water to farm GMO food and fuel tourism for land and hotels, and instill chemical warfare in Hawaii, connecting back to GMOs and big corporations such as Monsanto. If one word were to summarize the problems of Hawaii, it would be in the words of Ann Kealakele Heva, and that, quote, it can't be here unless it's damaging us, unquote. All of the damage being done to Hawaii is systematic, and the resistance has been going on since the illegal overthrow. Today, the Hawaiians are still speaking out to the Department of Interior that you don't belong here. What we can do today is support Hawaiian calls for deoccupation and telling the U.S. that it has to leave Hawaii alone.
Hawaii became the 50th state of the U.S. in August 1959. It came about with the overthrow, occupation, cultivation, and militarism in Hawaii. Coming with Iolani Palace in Honolulu, Hawaii, an actual palace that was illegally overthrown by the U.S. in 1893. 5 years later, it became released during the fake treaty of annexation. Ever since then, military occupation has 20% of Native Hawaiians are part of the military. After September 11th, the number of the military was off the charts. Hawaiians make up 20% of the Hawaiian population, 70% of the Hawaii became the 50th state of the U.S. in August 1959. It came about with the overthrow, occupation, culturalization, and militarism in Hawaii. Coming with the Iolani Palace in Honolulu, Hawaii, an actual palace that was illegally overthrown by the U.S. in 1893. 5 years later, 1899 came the Fifth Treaty of Annexation. Ever since then, military occupation has arose. 20% of Native Hawaiians are part of the military. After September 11th, the number of the military was off the charts. Hawaiians make up 20% of the Hawaiian population, 70% of the
There has been mercury spills on top of the dump of chemical weapons due to military bases. This has created a problem for Hawaiians because it's near the freshwater aquifer. Come be a part of the 5 million Americans who vacate every year to Hawaii, who contribute to the exploitation of resources, ruining the real estate market, and bring a lot of harm to the Native Hawaiians.